And what is going on, everybody? Hope you're having a good Monday to start off this week. And it's only been a couple of days since you've seen two of our faces as we had our Thursday night show as we were looking ahead to week number 11. Now, on tonight's show, we will be recapping what happened in week number 11. Not too many close games this past weekend, a lot of blowouts. Kentucky making a statement, Georgia making a statement, Alabama just sneaking by LSU. And Texas A&M, they might be just the best team, not only in the SEC, but in the country so far after a dominant performance against Missouri. So a lot of headlines both outside of the conference, inside the conference. We'll get to some more games here in week number 12, and we'll talk about some key storylines. No coach firings this week after we had plenty of weeks in a row where we've at least had one coach in the conference get fired, so at least that's good news. But Wade, with all that being said, how was your weekend?
Yeah, it was pretty good. I mean, I didn't really settle down to watch any football until the Alabama LSU game, and I think most Tiger fans would be pretty happy with the first half performance, and we were just hoping that LSU could break through in the second half. It just didn't happen, but it's just that kind of season. But the rest of the action around the league was pretty good. Felt pretty good to nail that Florida pick. We'll talk about that one here on the show. Maybe I'm on the big blue bandwagon for the rest of the season. Who knows?
Yeah, so let's go ahead and dive into our SEC talk, back to our regularly scheduled format, as we will be back to recapping games, and we'll have our AP Top 25 poll, though we will talk about what we will see tomorrow night on the second unveiling of the college football playoff polls. So just before we get right into the show, if you have any questions pertaining to your favorite team or teams around the conference, feel free to leave us a comment, and we will get to it here at the end of our show right after our hot topic segment. So let's go ahead and dive into our top games that we had in week number 11. We're going to start off with a not so close of a game. Number 3, Texas A&M at number 22, Missouri. Texas A&M was favored heading into this matchup by 6.5. In Missouri, like we mentioned, the storyline in this one that Bo Pribula was not going to be the starting quarterback in this game. It was going to rely heavily on the big plays from both Kevin Coleman and Ahmad Hardy. Ahmad Hardy was able to get a couple of big runs every now and then, but the story in this one was just too many turnovers, and Texas A&M's defense really continued to be solid. I mean, Missouri's offense really had no answer for anything, and Missouri's defense had no answer for all the weapons that Texas A&M offers. Marcel Reed continues to be one of the more dominant quarterbacks in the country. You saw some big runs by Reuben Owens to really put this one to bed, and you saw the receivers continue to step up as they have done every single week here in SEC play of Casey Concepcion and Mario Craver. So Texas A&M, really looking at the rest of their schedule here, I think it's really set up nice. It feels like they got through the bulk of their schedules so far this season. They have South Carolina at home, and then they'll have Texas. So I think really outside of this week's matchup against a South Carolina team that is coming off of the bye week, so they're going to be prepared for that, and then they'll have that big test on the road to Texas. But outside of that, they are not going to go 8-4 this season. They are more than likely going to go 11-1 or even undefeated at this point, and probably be in the SEC championship and have a good shot being a top 4 team, and getting one of those coveted byes heading into this college football playoff. For Missouri, though, this loss now eliminates them from the college football playoff. This was a team pretty similar to last season. A lot of preseason expectations, especially with the guys that you were bringing in, both on offense and defense. You bring in a guy like Bo Pribula coming in from Penn State, and then Ahmad Hardy has been one of the best running backs in the country, though the games that they have been in, the big games like Alabama, Texas A&M, and even Vandy, they have fallen short. So in back-to-back years, kind of a disappointment for Missouri fans, especially with all the talent that they had on offense and defense. But Texas A&M looking like to be one of the few teams, not only in the SEC, but in the country that are separating themselves from the pack.
Yeah, I mean, they're mighty impressive. All starts at the quarterback position with Marcel Reed. And then I think that you could argue they have the best foursome of receivers and running backs in the country. So this offense it's tough to stop, no doubt. And the defense is starting to play, kind of like we thought they would in the preseason. So I wouldn't want to have to play A&M in the playoff, especially I guess if they're in the top 4, they won't have to play at home. But I was going to say, if they end up hosting a playoff game, I mean, that atmosphere is going to be electric, especially if it's a team like Texas Tech, an in-state foe, or even potentially if Texas were to sneak in, that would be something, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. So Texas A&M gets the big win. Like I mentioned, they will be at home against South Carolina. Missouri will be hosting Mississippi State to get back on track here after losing 2 in a row. Now let's move on to the next game in the afternoon. And boy, this was more higher scoring than I thought, because Auburn was, like I mentioned, brought this at last week's show, that this was only one of 3 teams in all of college football to not give up 24 points on the season. And Vandy becomes the first team in the country to do that, as this took more than 4 quarters of football here, as Vandy ended up winning this one 45-38. And it was at times where Auburn really could have pulled away in this one. Ashton Daniels really had a game here, over almost 400 passing yards, and then Diego Pavia over 400 total yards. He had over 100 yards rushing, as well as 300 yards passing. So a really solid game for them. Jeremiah Cobb had himself a game too, almost 150 total yards for him. And Cedric Alexander had a couple of big runs too. So it was a lot of offense, limited defense in this one, as Vandy picked up a big win. I thought that this was going to be a trap game for them. Auburn, especially coming off of firing Hugh Freeze. And now you get a guy like DJ Durkin, has really been terrific as the defensive coordinator, and Auburn really stepped it up. They actually threw it to one of the best receivers in the country, Cam Coleman and Eric Singleton. Both of those guys had over 100 yards receiving. And look at that. I mean, when they can put it together and not be discombobulated like Hugh Freeze's offense was, Auburn offensively had their best game. Unfortunately, they couldn't put it all together on the defensive side. Couldn't play complementary football to get a big win and really bolt them into maybe getting 6 wins on the season. Now that's looking out of the realm, unless they could pull off an upset against Alabama in the Iron Bowl. But Vandy, a huge win for them. They'll take this one heading into the bye week, and they're going to have 2 really solid chances. If they can go undefeated the rest of the way, we could see the Doors make the 12-team playoff. But going into overtime, Vandy scored on one of their first plays. Auburn got the ball. They had a 4th and 7. The pass was incomplete to Cam Coleman, and Vandy survived. So this was a thrilling game, probably one of the best games that we had in the conference. So what are your overall takeaways on both sides and what you liked?
Well, yeah, Auburn woke up. I mean, this is the offense we wanted to see. I think that they put it all in the hands of Jackson Arnold in the preseason, and maybe that was where they went wrong, because the skill players are there. I mean, you have 2 of one of the best wide receiver tandems, I'll say, and then you have one of the emerging top running backs in the league. So I think it all just went wrong at the quarterback position for them. We saw what it could be like with Daniels airing it out, but at the end of the day, it's too little too late for Auburn. You would have liked to have gotten a big victory here on the road, like you said, maybe salvage the season. But for Vanderbilt, you escape and you keep your playoff hopes and Pavia's Heisman hopes alive, as crazy as that sounds.
Yeah, for sure. So Vandy with the big dub. I believe both of these teams now heading into the bye week here. So we will get back to those teams here. So now let's go on to the next matchup. LSU at number 4, Alabama. Alabama was the heavy favorite in this one. Vegas putting the spread at 10.5 points to the Crimson Tide. And this game started off like it did in 2011, as we really didn't have that many points in the first quarter, maybe even in the first half. But Alabama did get the ball first. They were driving down the field. They ended up going for it on 4th and 1. And LSU made a big tackle by Wes Weeks, who's been in the game for his brother Whit Weeks. Whit Weeks, we haven't seen him, I don't believe, since the Ole Miss game. But LSU's defense was able to hold strong. LSU was able to drive down the field, and Damian Ramos set up for a field goal, but ended up shanking it to the left, and Alabama was able to put up some points. LSU was able to respond then, but really in the first half where it was really lost when Alabama missed that field goal and LSU had an opportunity. They had a turnover, and Alabama was able to put up some points to go up 17-3 at the half. And at that point, the way that LSU's offense was operating, Garrett Nussmeier and this offense continued to struggle. You did see some big runs from Harlan Berry. He has really been one of the bright spots for this LSU offense that has definitely had a down year. You saw a lot of Berry and Brown in this one, especially with Nick Anderson going out with an injury. He's going to be out for the rest of the year. You saw Aaron Anderson suffer a shoulder injury. He did end up putting a brace on it. He did play in the second half. And you really didn't see anything of Trey'Dez Green. That's where I was very disappointed. In games where LSU's offense was the best, you did see a lot of Trey'Dez Green, and he did get a couple of targets. He had a couple of drops too. But really outside of that, LSU just didn't really target him, especially when they got down to the red zone, because LSU got down into the red zone plenty of times, and they just crapped the bed every time that they got inside the red zone. That's really been the story of the season for the Tigers. On Alabama's side, I definitely think the defense continues to really be elite. Offense, I still think, has some question marks. They're not as crisp as I thought that they would be in this game, but you do have to give credit to LSU's defense. I mean, in the games that they have struggled, it has been against the running quarterback. So you know that coming off of the bye week, they're going to be well prepared. I think that Blake Baker schemed a nice game, but the offensive play calling, wasn't that much better. You saw a lot of bubble screens, and then whenever you got to third down, you were running a halfback draw. So there was some, good and bad on both sides. It was definitely an ugly game. I think that you asked both head coaches. They definitely didn't play their best football. But nonetheless, Alabama does get a big win. They survive in advance. That's all Crimson Tide fans want. They'll have a big test coming up here against Oklahoma. And then really outside of that, I think that this is going to be a team that's going to be in Atlanta, maybe facing off against Texas A&M. For LSU. Disappointing season continues as they now fall to 5-4. So this game, heading into it, maybe lost some luster the first half at moments. You were treated to a nice game, but really outside of that, it was very ugly.
Yeah, it was just annoying because we've watched, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 of these Alabama LSU games where Alabama was kind of held in check offensively and LSU just couldn't move the football. And that happened in seasons where LSU was at its finest. I mean, that just seems to be how it is against Alabama. And, this game was within striking distance and they just couldn't make the big play, or they'd get sacked or drop a third down conversion, and it just added up. And at the end of the day, Alabama kept just making big plays. Mm-hmm. And it only took 2 or 3 of them because, yet again, here's LSU getting held under 20 points. So
yeah, well, they didn't even
not much to say positive there. First drive, Frank Wilson looked like he saved the season and maybe was going to get the job, and it ended very quickly.
Yeah, it was fool's gold on that first drive. We have a comment coming in from my mom. LSU could have won this game if they scored touchdowns. I definitely agree with that. Like I mentioned, the Absolutely. Red zone trips. You can't like miss field goals, and you can't just score field goals against a team like Alabama. It's not 2011 where you could just win the game 9-6 anymore. You got to be able to score points, and LSU's offense has just been lacking, like you mentioned. It's been like one game this season where they scored over 24 points against an FBS opponent. That was it. Other than that, pretty abysmal. I think that's why a lot of LSU fans are hoping that it's an offensive guru, so this doesn't ever happen again. Because you haven't really got complimentary football in a game the whole entire season. Maybe the Southeastern game, but let's be for real. I mean, Southeastern's good. I mean, they're one of the best teams in the Southland, but once you get into SEC play, it hasn't been pretty at all. But Alabama wins this one And we were going to move to an absolute stunner, if you want to call it here. I think that a lot of people.
Not for me.
Well, yeah, for you. But I picked Florida. I thought, maybe there's a glimmer of hope that Kentucky was going to win, but not by this, man. 38-7, utter dominance. And Kentucky was able to run the football. Not only did Seth McGowan have 92 yards, but Dowdle had 100 yards as well. So it just pound the rock. Florida definitely continues to be a disappointing football team after a week ago when they played really hard against their rivals in Georgia. You thought that the momentum was going to continue, and they just crapped themselves. I mean, DJ Lagway was benched. I honestly think that I agree with you that DJ Lagway might not even be at Florida next season. It doesn't even matter what the coach is at this point. Is his time in Gainesville may very well just be over, but Kentucky is proving me wrong. They may very well not be the worst team in the SEC, and Garrett Bowles has definitely been terrific quarterback. I know the stat line isn't going to show it, but he has really been sensational for Mark Stoops' offense, and the defense has really been stout. I know that they had some games early on the season, like the Ole Miss game, even the Tennessee game here in the past couple of weeks, but Kentucky, man, this is just a gritty football team. It doesn't matter if they like heading into the season, we thought it was going to be Zach Calzada. We didn't even know that Garrett Bowles was going to step in, and Bowles, thank God that he did, because Zach Calzada is a worthless quarterback. So Florida, I mean, their season at this point is pretty much over. I doubt that they make a bowl game at this point. I mean, maybe they win against Florida State here in a couple of weeks, but not going to be winning against Ole Miss. But Kentucky, though, they may very well be playing for a bowl game here for the next couple of weeks. So, Wade, I know that you picked Kentucky, one of the few chances that you got them. Are you back on the Big Blue train here?
Hey, might as well own it, right? Yeah. I mean, they won emphatically 38-7. Good for Kentucky, because this series has gone against them so many years. Didn't they lose like 30 straight in this series?
Yeah, they lost like 30 in a row.
Yeah, so this has to feel good. I don't know that the Lagway benching is full-time or forever or whatever. I mean, this game was just out of hand, and I think that they were trying to protect them and get a look at the true freshmen. But, yeah, this Florida job is not looking any better. I mean, you have to wonder what the roster is going to look like next year. You have to wonder what the fan buy-in is going to look like. They're talking about doing some stadium renovations that would cause the team to have to play in Orlando for a season. I don't think that's going to help their cause. So this Florida program might
world of sports.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think this Florida team might be more in Kentucky's position the next 4 to 5 years.
Who knows? Kentucky might be passing them. That's just time will tell here. But big win for the Cats, as they will now start to improve their SEC play record, because I don't think a lot of people had this team even winning a game, and they've already exceeded their expectations this season by a lot of people. Now let's move on, and congratulations, Wade, our first undefeated. Give you a big round of applause. 6-0, all thanks to those Kentucky Wildcats. So 6-0. Any words on that?
Go Big Blue.
Yeah. So I went 5-1. The lone game obviously was that Kentucky-Florida game. Probably should have, I mentioned it last week, all the injuries. I probably should have just flipped on Kentucky when I saw that. But I just thought that Florida, I was very impressed with them in Jacksonville, and I'm unimpressed. It's just been like a roller coaster ride. You can be impressed one week with this Florida team, and then the next week, never pick them again. But Chet, 3-3. He had a couple of upsets that he was going for. Ended up not working out for him, but that's okay. Hovering around 500. That will play. Now let's move on now to our SEC teams in the AP Top 25 poll. If you saw us on Thursday night, we did get a peek of our first rendition of the college football playoff poll, but now, since we are back to our regularly scheduled format, we are back to our AP poll, and not too many changes. Texas A&M remains at 3, Alabama at 4, Georgia at 5. Ole Miss does move up from 7 to 6. I think that they should definitely be inside of top 5 consideration. I know that they did fall to Georgia, but being at 6, I believe is just right for them. Number 10 is Texas. Texas could definitely move up. with a big win in Athens. Same with Oklahoma. We could see these teams either go up or go down, but Oklahoma is number 11. Vandy moves up a couple of spots after their overtime victory against Auburn, and Tennessee moves up to number 21 on the bye week. So what are your overall thoughts? Do you see the committee tomorrow night making any changes here from the AP to the college football playoff poll?
I don't think we'll see any changes. But after this week, certainly we will.
Yeah, to the bracket especially.
If Texas and Oklahoma pull off upsets, you might see those teams just simply flip. Ole Miss move up. I don't know, but when I look at this, I think there's going to be 5 SEC teams in the playoff. I mean, I just think whether it's Texas, Oklahoma, or Vanderbilt, I think one combination of those teams will end in the final top 12 and steal that at-large spot from, I guess, Notre Dame at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I do want to talk about what happened outside of the conference here. So we did have a big shakeup start on Friday, and the American Tulane did beat Memphis. And if you watched last week's show when we were looking through the bracket, Memphis was the number 12 seed. So we'll probably see either James Madison or South Florida move up into that number 12 spot, as they will be the highest ranked. Memphis probably played themselves out of contention. So in the American, it could be North Texas, could be South Florida, or Tulane, and or it could be James Madison, the lone representative from the Sun Belt, if the Dukes do win their conference championship. We did have some big upsets in the ACC. We did see Cal knock off Louisville and Wake Forest beating Virginia. So the ACC might not even get a single bid unless Georgia Tech is able to run the table and win out. Georgia Tech does face off against Georgia in Mercedes-Benz in the last week of the regular season. So the ACC might not even get a single bid, which is definitely crazy. The Big 12, Texas Tech, throttles BYU at home. So looks like Texas Tech, if they can win out, they are definitely going to be a lock. So ACC might not even get a single bid, just depending on how the rest of that conference plays. So that could definitely open up, another spot. And if Notre Dame falls, that could also open up another spot for like a Texas, Oklahoma, or Vandy if things fall in their lap. Now let's move on to our SEC Fantasy Week 11 results. And after back-to-back weeks where we saw Wade get back on track, now the score to put it at 6-4, we will now go start off with Wade's team to see if you can make it 3 in a row.
Yeah, got to stay hot if I want to catch Tyler. Gunnar Stockton, outside of that Auburn and Vanderbilt shootout, I think he might have been the best play of the weekend, going for 295 yards. Just like we talked about, Georgia allowed him to open up the pass game, and I think he had 40 or 50 rushing yards. So he's quietly one of the better dual threat guys. I know we talked a lot about Marcel Reed, but Gunnar Stockton's putting up comparable numbers week in, week out. So that's big for Georgia down the stretch. Jeremiah Cobb, he continues to emerge as one of the best running backs in the SEC. He goes for $150. Very solid performance for him in that loss to Vanderbilt. Well, a swing and a miss. Kevin Coleman, 3 yards. When I checked, he had 1, so I'll take the extra 2 yards.
The other 2 yards came on a run.
Yeah, so, look, Missouri's down to the third-string quarterback. He threw for 77 yards. I think 74 of them went to one player, so I had to imagine it was on a big play. So it just wasn't in the cards for Coleman and Missouri. Just 3 yards for him. And then the Florida defense, well, you might say, why were you celebrating that Kentucky win? Why did you pick Kentucky to win the game but pick the Florida defense in SEC Fantasy? Well, that's just the beauty of the Eliminator Challenge. I was kind of picking from the bottom of the barrel this week. And
I feel that.
It cost me as I end up with just 46 yards. Not bad, though. If your defense lets up 400 yards and your quarterback gets shy of 300, it's not too bad of a weekend to stay in the positives.
Yeah, honestly, with that being said, we've had a lot of instances where we've seen the quarterback get less of the defense, and it's an easy negative. And I think you got to give credit to Jeremiah Cobb for saving you for that. So 46 yards. We will see if that's enough to get you to 5 wins on the season. As we go to my team here, we had the same thing. Trey Green, 0 yards. Kevin Coleman, 3 yards. I try to get cute on it. I thought that Trey Green, he's really been consistent. It was just a dud game for him, but I do expect him to bounce back against Arkansas defense. It's let up a ton of yards this season. But Ty Simpson, pretty similar stats to Gunnar Stockton, 285 passing yards on the day. And it was 7 points that Florida got, and Jadon Ball got the lone touchdown for the Gators in what was definitely a game to forget if you're a Florida fan. 91 total yards, most of those coming on the ground. He did pick up 24 yards, so that's how he did get the touchdown. You get the receiving touchdown for him. We did already mention Trey Green and Texas A&M's defense. Thank you. Finally, after back-to-back weeks of having like tumultuous defenses, A&M's defense arises and gives me 284 yards. And we are back in track, ladies and gentlemen, 92 yards. And now the score is 7-4. So if one more win, I clinch SEC Fantasy. Wade can't win SEC Fantasy. The only thing that he could tie it. So this is either going to end in a tie or a victory for myself, and I definitely need it, especially with how fantasy football has gone for me this year. So now let's move on to our SEC Fantasy rules before we get into our weekly draft here. So our weekly roster is 1 quarterback, a running back, a receiver, and a defense. And our 2 weekly rules, you cannot draft the same player twice in back-to-back weeks. And the survivor defense this late in the year is definitely going to kick your butt, as once you draft the defense, you can't use them again. And once we get past like week 9, it definitely gets tricky. So now let's go on to our SEC quarterbacks. As you can see here, yep, LSU quarterback. Whoever starts, that's who I'm going to get. And then you're going to go Marcel Reed for Texas A&M. Now, South Carolina's defense did rise to the occasion against Alabama. So do you see them doing that, or do you have Marcel Reed continuing really what has been a phenomenal season for Reed in this Aggies offense?
I think Marcel Reed's just on fire right now, and I don't think South Carolina is going to be able to stop him. South Carolina did okay against Garrett Nussmeier. I mean, everybody has. And they did okay against Ty Simpson, but those guys stand still in the pocket and let guys like Dylan Stewart get him. Marcel Reed's not going to have any of that. He's going to run around him and do his thing. He might even check out of this game a little early.
Yeah, so just to clarify the LSU quarterback, I'm going to be taking whoever starts this game, whether that's Garrett Nussmeier or Michael Van Buren. I'm not going to get the points for both. I'm only going to get whoever starts the game, but I do expect both of these quarterbacks to get some playing time. But I feel, great about whoever starts going up against this Arkansas defense. That's one of the worst in the SEC, an hour and ever for this LSU offense. I mean, everybody's been able to score on the Hogs, so I will roll with the LSU starting quarterback to roll the 11:45 a.m. game. So we don't have too many night games in Death Valley, but that's just how the season has gone. When you have a 2-win team coming into your place and you have 5 wins, that's you're lucky to get 11 a.m. They should have put you probably at 7 a.m., but, being on SEC Network, you got lucky. Now let's move on to our running backs here. Kawan Lacey. Honestly, outside of Ahmad Hardy, he has really been a dog for us both for SEC Fantasy. And yes, we are done now for a 16 SEC team. Seth McGowan, I'm an eye in this matchup against Tennessee Tech. McGowan, honestly, I could have took him last week and really felt good about it. Kawan Lacey, though, we just saw Kentucky run all over them. I believe that's why you're picking Mr. Lacey.
Exactly. Copy and paste. I mean, Kawan Lacey is, like you said, probably the second best running back in the conference. And really right now he's playing better than Hardy because Missouri's so one-dimensional. Everybody knows who's getting the football. But Kawan Lacey, I think he's going to have himself a game against Florida. I don't see Ole Miss really trying to stretch the field through the air. I mean, I think Lacey will get 100 yards. I think his backup will get 100 yards because that's what Kentucky did. They had 2 guys get 100 yards rushing on this Gators defense.
Very true. And Seth McGowan, no words to be said. This was just a week that I was circling to really complete this. So Wade and I have now completed our 16-team criteria, so we could check the box on that. But Seth McGowan, really like the matchup against Tennessee Tech, though. That is an undefeated team. So we will talk about that, though, once we get to that Kentucky-Tennessee Tech game. But Seth McGowan has really been an underrated running back here in the conference. Now let's move on to the pass catchers. Chris Brazzell, welcome back. You had a couple of weeks off, but now you're back here in SEC Fantasy. Same with Harrison Wallace. We've seen Wallace pass a couple of times here, but Wallace going up against Kentucky, Tennessee going up against New Mexico State, and New Mexico State doesn't have Diego Pavia, so there should be no worry for Tennessee's offense to really get this rolling here.
Yeah, I'm sure Diego would suit up in this game just to get another crack at Tennessee. Yeah, get an early look at them, but yeah, unfortunately for New Mexico State, they don't have Pavia to go pace for pace with this Tennessee high-powered offense. Almost went with their quarterback as well, but decided that Brazzell would be just enough. And I think he at least has one big play in this game. But it might be a game where, you try to get some of your younger guys in just to kind of see what next year's looking like.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Harrison Wallace. I do agree with your pick of Kawan Lacey. I definitely think that they are going to balance this offense. Trinidad Chambers honestly thought about taking him because Florida's defense definitely has been a roller coaster ride this season. They've had some good games. They had their bad games, but going up against one of the more higher scoring offenses in the SEC, I do expect Harrison Wallace, who has really stepped up into the wide receiver one role after, Ole Miss lost a guy like Trey Harris, who's now playing for the Chargers. So I do expect Harrison Wallace to just continue his consistency. Same with Chris Brazzell. This has been honestly two of the best wide receivers, not only for SEC Fantasy, but in the conference. Okay, now let's close things out here with our defenses here. And these two teams just played. You're going to go LSU's defense for the first time this season. That's the first time that we have seen the purple and gold. A defensive unit that has definitely been a bright spot for that team, Alabama. But LSU's matchup, talk about going against a higher-powered offense in Arkansas. It feels like we have been just looking for an Arkansas win, especially at home. It just hasn't happened. So what do you expect from this Hogs offense going up against an LSU defense that struggles against a running quarterback? And that's exactly what Taylor Green can provide.
Yeah, they definitely do have a bad history with these running quarterbacks. However, I think this is a resurgent bunch. I think that there's a good chance they'll get their leader back in weeks.
Yeah.
And even without him, I mean, this team had some really good moments against Alabama and Ty Simpson. They made them look lost on a few plays. They got burnt on a few big plays, but they weren't on the ground. They were through the air. And I don't know that Arkansas is going to be able to stretch the field like that. I mean, if Green gets his 100 yards on the ground, I wouldn't be shocked. And if Washington gets 100 yards on the ground, I wouldn't be shocked. But I don't know that Arkansas is going to be able to stretch the field on LSU. And I think that's going to keep the yardage down. And look, I mean, it has been one of the better units in the SEC. And we're getting down to the bottom of the barrel in this survivor defensive pool. And I figured if I didn't use them this week and I didn't win this week, I probably wouldn't have the chance to use them next week because you're going to snag them against Western Kentucky. So
how do you know that?
Well, I just gave them to you now. So
yeah, I know. Yeah, I honestly, LSU could definitely be a good pick. Just look at last year's game against Arkansas. LSU's defense, when it wasn't that great of a unit, it shut down Taylor Green in this offense, and LSU won that game 34-10. So maybe they could, do the same script as they did last year. I'm going to go with Alabama. They were just the best defensive unit that I had left. It is, an okay matchup against Oklahoma, but the same thing that I said when we were talking about the Georgia matchup, Alabama has been circling this Oklahoma game as well. If you flip back to last season, Oklahoma absolutely dominated this one, so Alabama is definitely want their get back, and this Alabama defense has gotten their swagger back the past couple of weeks. And John Mateer has, had his goods, had his bads. The Tennessee game was really solid. This is a team coming off of the bye week, but I'm just going to trust Alabama's defensive unit. And what could be a more lower scoring game, Oklahoma's defense is really solid too. So I'm going to go with the Crimson Tide. So that is our SEC fantasy rosters for week number 12. Now let's move on to our week 12 games and pick them a more full slate here as most of our teams coming off of the bye week here. So we will start with our morning games to kick off our Saturday afternoon. The first one is an annual rivalry game, if you want to call it a rivalry game at this point. South Carolina at number 3, Texas A&M. South Carolina is coming off of the bye week. Last time that we saw them was a heartbreaking loss at home against Alabama. Texas A&M, both of their past wins have been dominant as they just blew out the doors of both LSU and Missouri. Do you see the same here for Texas A&M, or do you think that the South Carolina team is going to come into Kyle Field motivated off of their fresh bye week?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's good timing for South Carolina. Having the bye week, Texas A&M's feeling on top of the world. They just won a road game very easily. It's an early kickoff, so I think there could be a slower start for A&M, but ultimately this team's just way too talented to lose this football game. And I think that the running attack that A&M brings will just wear down the Gamecocks.
Yeah, I think you are going to see South Carolina. They need to get off to a hot start in this one to really have a shot at. The defense really needs to step it up because not too many defensive units have been able to shut down the Texas A&M rushing and passing attack. But it's at home. It doesn't even matter if this was at Williams-Brice too. Texas A&M is just really just a machine at this point. And the way that this defense has really been picked up, it was a slow start out of the gates. If you remember, they gave up a ton of points to both UTSA and Notre Dame. But they really picked it up. So give me Texas A&M. I think this is going to be a close game for probably the third quarter, and then A&M just going to do what they do in the fourth quarter. They are just going to pile it on. Chet's going to go the opposite. He is going to go pull off the upset. I don't even remember the last time that Chet picked Texas A&M. I think he's just manifesting a loss for Texas A&M.
Not want the Aggies to win.
Yeah, to really shake up the SEC race. But he is rolling with the Gamecocks to get the road upset. We will see if it happens. Now let's move on to the battle for the Golden Boot. Like I mentioned, 11:45 kick down there in Baton Rouge. Arkansas at LSU. Arkansas, one of those teams coming off of the bye week. Last time that we saw them, they had definitely controlled most of that game against Mississippi State. Mississippi State did end up winning that game. So like I mentioned, Arkansas has had like these close games where they are in it and they just like fall flat on their face every single time. LSU, they just need to feel a taste of victory at this point because it's definitely been a rough couple of weeks for the Tigers, especially on offense this whole entire season. So do you see a high-scoring shootout or do you see more lower-scoring shootout? Because this rivalry game, outside of last season, it's a rivalry game. It doesn't matter if Arkansas is like 2-10 and LSU is undefeated. This game, it feels like it always comes down to the fourth quarter.
Yeah, and for that reason, I am thankful that the SEC saved this one. Probably even more thankful after watching another Alabama beatdown of LSU that we don't see that one every year. But anyways, it is a good series.
Yeah.
I do think Taylon Green's going to present an element of trouble for the Tigers defense. But like you mentioned, whoever starts for LSU, I mean, this is as good of an opportunity as ever to push the ball down the field. You won't have Nick Anderson. It's unfortunate what happened to him, but he really hasn't been a big part of this passing game. I think Trey'Dez Green is a matchup nightmare in a game like this. I hope that they take advantage of that. And then, honestly, I'm curious to see who steps up because you might not have Aaron Anderson or he might just be out there kind of in a decoy capacity. I mean, is this the game where Chris Hilton finally puts it together? Kyle Parker, somebody. But I do think LSU gets over the hump. I think they put up 25 points against a team with 85 scholarship players, and I think they take this one. I'll give the Tigers a 34-24 victory.
All right, 10-point victory for the Tigers against the Hogs. Yeah, I expect this one to come down to the fourth quarter. Arkansas is honestly just motivated to get a win here. Same with LSU. I mean, that just two teams just had a bad taste in their mouth. It feels like more than a month at this point. LSU's offense, like you mentioned, it feels like now or never against an Arkansas defense. I mean, we haven't really had a sample size that they've been able to stop, a really solid offense. Mississippi State in the first half, they really played well. In the second half, though, they struggled against Blake Shapen, that passing attack. Like you mentioned, though, if we do like with a banged up Nick Anderson and Aaron Anderson, and guys like Kyle Parker and Chris Hilton definitely got to step up, and Trey'Dez Green can't have 0 yards like he did against Alabama. No matter who's the quarterback, throw the ball down the field. I'm tired of all these bubble screens and all these BS side throws. I mean, you really have nothing to lose for. You're probably going to be playing in some Tax Slayer Gator Bowl or something like that. Just rip it. Who cares if Garrett Nussmeier throws like a pick or not? I mean, just let it loose because you really have nothing to lose at this point. You are playing for a trophy, which is always nice. The Golden Boot is always coveted by both teams. I do expect a lot of points. LSU, like you mentioned, their kryptonite is a running quarterback, and Taylor Green is just not a running quarterback. He is a big dog. He is 6'4", well over 230 pounds. And then Mike Washington, that's like one of the more underrated running backs in the country. So I'm going to go with LSU winning this one 34-31, coming down to the wire. Could even come down to Damian Ramos field goal, which I'm sure LSU fans hope that doesn't happen. But all roll with the Tigers. We have not all rolled with LSU in a couple of weeks, so it definitely feels good if you're an LSU fan to see the logo here. But if LSU loses this game, oh boy, it's only going to get worse down there in Baton Rouge, though. A coach will be coming soon. Now let's move. A coach will be coming soon for both teams, actually. But now let's move on to Tennessee Tech at Kentucky. And yes, I was not lying when Tennessee Tech is 10-0.
I did not.
One of the best teams in the FCS in Kentucky. They got to pay him a couple of $1 million to come down here to Lexington, Kentucky, and they're going to definitely give themselves a game there. But do you have the Cats continue to roll on here and on their road to 6 wins here?
Well, I mean, that does bring a little bit of a element of surprise here with Tennessee Tech being undefeated. I mean, 3 weeks ago, I would have been all over that storyline. I would have picked the FCS over SEC upset. But this Kentucky team has found their identity, and I don't think they're out of the realm of possibility of a bowl game if they win out. Which, I mean, the way Louisville played against a pretty bad California team, I think it could be done if this team stays hot. So, yeah, I think they have a little bit of hope going into their next game against Vanderbilt. So it's going to be a tough stretch for the Wildcats after that, but I think they extend their winning streak to 3.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm going to go with the Cats here. That's first time in a long time I've picked Kentucky. They proved me wrong, to be honest with you. I thought that they were probably going to have 0 wins in the SEC, and it's going to be another devastating year for Kentucky. Maybe Mark Stoops is out, but Mark Stoops may very well be saving his job. I'm not sure if he was on the hot seat to begin with, but I definitely think that Kentucky offensively, they've definitely been impressive, especially the quarterback position, and the defense has really stepped it up, like I mentioned, after a couple of rough games. So I expect Kentucky to win this one. I'm going to say pretty comfortably, though Tennessee Tech will come to play. But, I mean, SEC versus FCS, you are going to start to see a separation in the second half. Chet also going with Big Blue. So all rocking with the Cats this week. Now let's move on to one of our top 15 matchups that we have in the conference this weekend. 2 big games that are really not only going to separate teams in the playoff, but in the SEC championship race. Our first game is number 11 Oklahoma at number 4 Alabama. Oklahoma coming off of the bye week. Alabama coming off of 20-9 victory against LSU. And like I mentioned last season, Alabama got embarrassed 26-3. Do we see Oklahoma going 2-0 in their time against Alabama in the SEC, or do we have the Crimson Tide getting a little bit of revenge here?
Yeah, that's true. Last year, Alabama smacked LSU and then went on the road and got smacked by Oklahoma. That one was definitely a surprise. I think could be pretty surprising if Oklahoma came into Tuscaloosa and won. But crazier things have happened. I just think this Alabama team is rounding into form. Like you said, the defense has its juice. Ty Simpson, I mean, it's a 2-man race between him and Marcel Reed for SEC Player of the Year. I think both are deserving. So I think the momentum carries, and I think Alabama wins this game by at least a touchdown.
Yeah, I don't think we get a blowout in back-to-back years, though. I definitely think that Oklahoma is going to be playing for their season at this point. If they win this one, I definitely think that this is going to be a college football playoff team, because really the main challenge that they have left is LSU at home. And if you're Oklahoma fans, you would take that every single day. But this Alabama team, this is why I picked them in the preseason. Everybody was like, oh, they're going to suck. They're going to go 7-5, or they lost to Florida State in week number 1. Everybody just need to calm down. They're going to figure it out like they always do. I mean, they lose the first game, and after that, it's been unblemished, especially in SEC play. Though they've had their games where it has been a little bit shaky, especially on the offensive side of the ball. I do expect a more lower scoring game. So Alabama is going to be in a bare knuckle fight, it feels like, for 3 weeks in a row, like starting with the South Carolina game. but I'm going to go with Alabama. I'll say by 4. I think Oklahoma and Brent Venables' defense will really have it tricky on both Ryan Williams and Jeremy Bernard. But Troy Blaylock really is going to have to get it going because and then John Mateer, too, you really have to limit the turnovers against Alabama's defense. But I will be rolling with the Tide. Chet, another upset going with the Sooners. So we will see what happens in this matchup if Alabama wins. Feels like they're going to be a lock in the SEC championship as long as they can take care of business against Auburn. They do play Eastern Illinois next week. So, I mean, we already know what that score is going to be. But going on the road to Auburn, that's definitely going to be interesting, especially if Auburn's offense can continue to shine because that defense, and the Iron Bowl, it doesn't matter if Auburn's 0-12 and Alabama's 12-0. That game's always going to come down to the final play. But obviously, we will have plenty of time to talk about that rivalry game. We will now go back to a Conference USA versus SEC game. New Mexico State's back to facing off against an SEC foe. Obviously, their star quarterback and star head coach is no longer there to save them. And with Tennessee coming off of a loss against Oklahoma, this just feels like a Tennessee runaway, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see any reason for concern here. Almost took Tennessee in SEC fantasy, but for some reason, I think they'll let up some points. Let the young guys get in there, but I don't think it's ever going to be in question. It's going to be like 45-21 or something,
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm going to go with Tennessee pretty big here. Chet's going to go with the big orange there, so I'll roll with Tennessee. So Tennessee looking to get back on track there. They are out of the college football playoff, but maybe they are playing for a bid to get maybe to like the Citrus Bowl down there or in Orlando or whatever what the Outback Bowl was now is the
ReliaQuest Bowl.
Yeah, so I guess you're playing for those bowl games at this point. But now let's move on to our next game, Florida at number 6, Ole Miss. Florida coming off an embarrassing performance on the road in Lexington. 38-7. Ole Miss coming off of a dominating performance against the Citadel, 49-0. We all expected that. I mean, the Citadel is a terrible football team. Let's be honest with you. Sorry if you're a Citadel fan.
Hey, no.
But Florida, there's a lot of rumors about Lane Kiffin. They're going to get a little bit of look of him. But Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin might be like, do I really want to go to there? No. So how do you see this game going between Ole Miss and Florida? Ole Miss, last time I checked, 15.5-point favorite against the Gators.
Yeah, look, I mean, Ole Miss can make a statement for their coach to stay next year if they just curb stomp Florida, or they can make their coach more money because Florida's going to have to cough up a bigger check.
That's true.
Either way, it's going to work well for Lane Kiffin. But seriously, I mean, we talked a little bit about Florida's trajectory, and we've talked about Ole Miss's trajectory, and I mean, I think these are just two programs heading in totally opposite directions. I get that Florida's a bigger state than Mississippi, no doubt, and maybe has richer alums, but I mean, the talent in Florida is divided amongst 4 Power 5 programs now with UCF being in there, and USF's a potential playoff team. And they're all in bigger, more attractive cities. Ole Miss has all the resources in their state funneling into Oxford. Yes, I know that Mississippi State is in the state as well, but they're not going to ever, be on the level of Ole Miss, in my opinion. So if I'm Lane Kiffin, I'm winning this game big this week, and I'm staying put. I mean, what does Florida have to offer me? Especially if I wanted to leave Ole Miss, I could go to LSU or Arkansas. So I don't think he's going anywhere, but I definitely know this weekend he's going to get a big win.
Yeah, I expect the same. Ole Miss, sorry, Florida. I mean, it's just an up and down. I can't trust this team anymore at this point, whether it's DJ Lagway or the backup. Maybe Jadon Ball will get a couple of big runs. That's about it. But Ole Miss, I think that they are going to win this one pretty comfortably, at least by 14 points. I just don't think that Florida's defense will be able to limit the big plays, both for the receivers of Lacey and Wallace combined, and Trinidad Chambliss has definitely been a nice story. And Ole Miss's defense, too, really underrated. They lost a lot of pieces, especially on the defensive front. They really put together. Got to give credit to Golden, the defensive coordinator. So give me the Rebs to really win this one. Chet going with the Rebs as well. So sorry, Gators. We pretty much left the train there for you. Now let's move on to our SEC Talk game of the week. To be honest with you, we could have two SEC Talk game of the weeks, but number 10, Texas at number 5, Georgia. Texas coming off of the bye week, or last time that we saw them, they were really dominant in the first half against Vandy. They did let Diego Pavia in the doors crawl all the way back. Georgia, though, dominant performance against the Mississippi State team that was really playing teams close like Texas and Tennessee. But Georgia just walked in there and said, we're the real dogs. 41-21 was the final. And honestly, it probably should have been more than that because Nate Frazier had 181 rushing yards in that game. So like I said, we're going to bring up last year's game. This was all Georgia last year. They went on the road and beat the dog crap out of Texas. So do we see that happen again with Georgia? Because Georgia – so far, with Texas in the SEC, Georgia has beat them twice, both in Austin as well as the SEC championship. So do you see the Dogs moving to 3-0 against the Horns?
Well, yeah, I was as shocked as anybody for last year's result. I mean, I had Texas winning that game. Texas very well could have won the SEC championship game. That was the first look we got at Gunnar Stockton because of an injury to Carson Beck. I could see this one going either way. I mean, I think Arch Manning has kind of blossomed, if you will. I think he's ready to go. He's ready for this moment. So I don't think Texas is going to get blanked or embarrassed. But I don't see Georgia losing 2 primetime games at home. And Nate Frazier just ran for 180 yards, and Stockton nearly put up 300 yards all purpose. So I think this offense is just really good right now, and I think they'll win it close.
Yeah, Georgia's offense is really clicking in all cylinders, and Texas is starting to figure it out. But what we have seen with Arch Manning on the road has been struggles, and this is not going to get any easier. A night game between the hedges. Give me Georgia. They're going to go 3-0. It is going to be a close game, but I just don't think that Texas offense is going to have that good of a way. I mean, we have seen Georgia's defense really struggle, but I mean, Blake Shapen did even throw for over 100 yards in last week's game when Mississippi State's offense was really rolling. So you're going to have to get a couple of big plays from the running back and Contrivion Wisner, because whenever Wisner gets really involved is when Texas offense really flourishes. So I think that Texas offense will be able to keep it in it. Both defenses are phenomenal. Texas defense has struggled in their back-to-back games that they have played here in the SEC, but I'm just going to go with the home team here. Give me the Dogs. And Chet, clean sweep in this showdown on Saturday night as we were all rocking with Georgia at home. Now let's move on to our nightcap on the SEC Network, Mississippi State at Mizzou. Both of these teams looking to get back on track after disappointing losses, both coming off of blowout losses to Mississippi State at the hands of Georgia, Missouri at the hands of Texas A&M. So who do you have between Mississippi State and Missouri, a matchup that we don't really see too often? We've seen it in back-to-back years. So who do you have winning between the Tigers and the Dogs?
Yeah, not a ton to say about either one of these teams. I mean, Mississippi State got a little bit of momentum and then lost big to Georgia as expected. Missouri's down to their third quarterback. I just don't like the trajectory of this Missouri team. I think they're going to be down in the dumps, and I think Mississippi State pulls off a road upset here. I just think that they're a little bit more of a motivated football team at the moment, and they could get to a bowl game with this win.
Yeah, absolutely, especially if they could win this one. You never know with the Egg Bowl here in a couple of weeks. I know that. I mean, like it's always close. Like the Egg Bowl is going like the Iron Bowl too. Like you're gonna have a lot of crazy plays. I think there's gonna be one thing that you could bet on: a lot of points. Because both defenses have not showed up in the past couple of weeks. I know that offenses that they face have been really good, but I do expect whoever starts at the quarterback, if it's Kamario Taylor, the sensational freshman from Mississippi State, or Blake Shapen. But I just think that Missouri, just you see, like feed the ball, just like Ahmad Hardy. There you go. Just get some big runs. Missouri, though, like couple of teams, like they have like had these big games at home and just lost. So I think that Missouri is due for, I'm not going to even say a big win at home. Not like Mississippi State's a big win at this point. I mean, it's just a game that not too excited about for both fan bases, to be honest with you. So I will roll Missouri. winning this one. Very close, a lot of points. Let's move on. I've been talking about this game too much. But this game has lost so much luster over the last couple of weeks, but Jets roll with the Tigers. So you are the lone Mississippi State.
Could be my Wildcats of the weekend.
I was on Mississippi State for the whole season. They just let me down every single week. So you know what? I'm off the train. I tried Mississippi State. Maybe I'll be back for the Egg Bowl, but we'll see. But now that is it for our Week 12 games. Now let's roll into some hot topics. Which team overall to you in this conference has been the most disappointing as we roll here to week number 12 and starting to close out this regular season?
Man, this one, 3 names popped in my head.
There's a lot of
them. I think the obvious one's LSU. I mean, they had the highest expectations. I think you would probably agree with that. But besides LSU, which team do you think has been the most disappointing?
Well, I'm going to go to South Carolina. I know that they lost a lot of talent on defense, but the way that they started their season, I thought that was definitely a tale. I mean, I know that Virginia Tech is, they fired their coach. They're not a very good football team, but I think that was going to be the tone setter for them. And they played teams, very close. I mean, it started off very poorly in the SEC, getting blown out at home against Vandy. Then you went on the road to an LSU team where, you limited them to a lot of big plays. You only put up 20 points, but really outside of that, it's just been a very disappointing season. It feels like they wasted the talent of Lenore Sellers. It's probably honestly, the most talented quarterback that has walked through their doors for this South Carolina program. So I think that the offensive talent was definitely there. Defense honestly had they had their good games, they had their bad games, but it was just a South Carolina team. They were a preseason top 15 team. I think that a lot of people, we either had them making a run being 10-2, but just building what they were from last season. They finished the season 9-3. You lose in the Citrus Bowl against Illinois. Though you did lose the bowl game, you did have a lot of expectations heading into this season. It was not really a do or die year for Shane Beamer, but it's looking like they don't make a bowl game. Maybe Shane Beamer exits to Virginia Tech or another school. Who knows? But outside of LSU, I think that South Carolina has been the most disappointing team because really outside of that, I didn't really expect, maybe Auburn an 8-4 team. Maybe that's disappointing. Arkansas, I expected them to not be a very good football team, but I think that South Carolina, I thought that they could be at least a 9-3 team. So far, though, it has been a complete failure for Shane Beamer in that squad. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, South Carolina came to mind. Florida came to mind. Both of those teams have really tough schedules, but I did not expect them to lose week in and week out. And then, Auburn and Arkansas. I mean, I think that all of those fan bases are disappointed. Arkansas, like South Carolina, showed some promise at the end of last year and looked like a dark horse team. And it looks like to me they're going to be the only winless SEC team unless they
That's wild.
pull off an upset down the stretch here against LSU or Missouri, which could happen. I mean, those teams aren't trending in the right direction, but all of a sudden Kentucky's got 2 conference wins, and Mississippi State, they could pick up a second one as well.
Does
so for
Arkansas
Arkansas
have
to
one
be
win,
a
or are
dead
they
last
still
is
winless?
bad. What's that?
Does Arkansas have a win, or are they still winless?
They're the only winless one.
Okay.
Auburn beat Arkansas, and that's it.
Yeah, that's true. All right, let's move on to some more news. Just some settlement news. Brian Kelly rejects 2 settlement offers, but can you blame the man at that point? I mean, if you signed the paper to get
a contract,
$54 million buyouts in the contract, so if I was in his shoes, I would do the same thing. But I mean, you're just going to have to pay him $54, move on, $54 million, move on, and find your next head coach. Really, nothing on those sides. Same with Arkansas and all the rest of the SEC schools. We probably won't see any movement till late November, December for majority of these schools. But whenever we have those news, we will break it here on SEC Talk. Now let's move on to our next hot topic. Can Vanderbilt run the table and make the college football playoff?
Yeah, I mean, I think they got the moxie to do it with Diego Pavia. The schedule certainly isn't easy, but I think it's manageable.
Tennessee.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. Tennessee's going to want to play spoiler for sure. But I mean, I think the resume's there if they're a 2-loss
Yeah.
SEC team, especially, I know they lost to Texas, but that game was close. And if Texas picks up another loss this weekend, they could jump them,
Oh yeah, if
or
Texas
will by
or
the end of the year.
Oklahoma loses, that would definitely open the door for them.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think they would at least slide up to 13 and then just be kind of knocking at the door and eventually make it up.
Yeah, I agree with you. The road's definitely tough. Kentucky at Tennessee, but this Vandy offense can definitely put up some points. It's like Tennessee's defense isn't that great. You may have to get into a shootout, but you could definitely trust a guy like Diego Pavia to get it done. I know that game wasn't close at all last season. I think that Vanderbilt, though, if they can get past Kentucky, they're going to want everything. Like you mentioned, Tennessee's going to want to spoil Vandy, and Vandy's going to want some get back of what Tennessee did to them last season. I feel like they run up the score a little bit. Vandy's going to want to do the same thing. Man, that rivalry week, I cannot wait for it. We're going to have some big games. That's really going to have a lot of playoff and SEC championship implications as well. Now let's move on to our last hot topic. Which road team is more likely to get a win, Oklahoma or Texas?
I'm gonna go with Oklahoma just because they beat Alabama last year, whereas Texas, like we said, they had two shots at Georgia and they got beat. But Oklahoma, I mean, look, they did it against Alabama last year. It's a different team, a different style, but I mean, I think if Mateer's gonna get healthy at some point and start playing like he did weeks 1 through 3. I mean, he's playing well, but he's a shell of himself. Whenever that happens, whatever team that's against, I feel very bad for them. And it could be Alabama this weekend. So I think the Tide better watch out. I think Oklahoma's going to give them a game.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Oklahoma too. Like you mentioned, I just feel we're just like waiting for John Mateer to put it together after like he had a dominant performance in the first couple of weeks of the season. Then he had that surgery on his thumb. He only missed one game. He was back for the Red River rivalry, and that game just went lopsided Texas's defense. So I just feel like looking at the atmospheres, I'd rather pick the team that's going on the road at 2:30 than going on the road at 6:30 at night with a very hostile crowd there. So I also trust Oklahoma's defense. They also showed me more. Texas defense past couple of weeks. They've got a guy like Mississippi State put up a lot of points. Vandy as well. The way that this Georgia offense has been rolling, I just think that this game, outside, if you're going to say like which game was probably going to lean more towards getting out of hand, I'll lean towards Texas and Georgia. But that's going to be it here for our SEC Talk Week 12 show. Like we mentioned, we only have a couple more weeks here of the regular season, and then we will be talking about conference championship and then get into the playoffs. I'm sure we will have a lot of coaching news as we get into late November, as well as our December months here. So SEC Talk will continue to roll on. We are going to be back here either Sunday or Monday night. We're just going to have to look at our primetime games for the NFL because our next primetime games in the NFL honestly suck. If you look at the schedule, Jake and I looked at it earlier today, and the NFL, I don't know. They got to flex some of these games out. But other than that, we do appreciate everybody for tuning in to tonight's show. Thank you for all your comments and statements in the chat, both on YouTube and on Facebook. And we will be back here next week talking about week number 13 and week number 12 recap to see what things went down, maybe some parity or maybe some teams separating themselves from the pack. So we appreciate everybody for tuning in, and we will catch you all next time.